It was one of those mornings when even the sky seemed tired of crying. Rain poured endlessly, flooding the streets, and people rushed into the cafe just to escape the cold. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and wet coats. Laughter, voices, and the sound of cups filled the room. Everything felt warm, until the door opened. A man stepped in, drenched from head to toe. His coat was torn, shoes soaked, and his eyes told the kind of story that had too much silence in it. He stood there for a moment, as if unsure whether he belonged. Then, quietly, he walked to the counter. "Just one black coffee, please." His voice was calm but weak, almost trembling. The barista looked up, bored. "That'll be $3.25, he said flatly. The man nodded and reached into his pockets. First one, then the other. His movements became desperate. He searched again, patting his coat. Nothing. His shoulders stiffened. I think I left my wallet at home," he murmured. "If it's all right, maybe I could just sit here until the rain." Before he could finish, the barista's voice rose sharply. "This isn't a shelter, old man. No money, no service." A few customers snickered. Someone at the corner whispered, "Can't even afford coffee. What's he doing here?" The man froze. The humiliation cut deeper than the cold. Slowly, he turned toward the door, ready to walk back into the storm. And then it happened. "Wait!" The word came from behind the counter, clear and steady. Everyone turned to see where it came from. A young waitress stood there, her apron slightly damp, her expression calm but firm. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a crumpled $5 bill, and placed it on the counter. "I'll pay for his coffee," she said simply. For a moment, no one spoke. The laughter stopped. The barista blinked, caught off guard. And the man, the one the world had just mocked, lifted his head slowly, as if he'd just heard something he hadn't in a long time. Kindness. The cafe went completely silent. No one expected her to speak up like that. Emma didn't even look around. She just took out that crumpled $5 bill from her pocket and placed it firmly on the counter. "One black coffee," she said, her voice calm but steady. The barista frowned. "Emma, seriously? You don't have to do this. The guy doesn't even have money." She looked straight at him. "I know, but that doesn't mean he deserves to be humiliated." Her voice grew stronger with every word. "Kindness isn't a transaction. It's not about who can pay. It's about who still cares." The cafe that was full of laughter a minute ago suddenly felt awkward. The people who mocked the old man now stared into their cups, pretending not to hear. The old man stood frozen, his tired eyes filling with tears he didn't want anyone to see. Emma turned toward him and smiled gently. "Please, sir, have a seat by the window. I'll bring your coffee." For a second, he couldn't move. Maybe it had been too long since someone spoke to him with kindness. Then, slowly, he nodded and walked to the table near the window. The rain outside kept falling, and he just sat there quietly, staring out like he was lost in another time. Emma made the coffee herself. Her hands were shaking a little, but her heart felt lighter. She carried the cup carefully to his table and placed it in front of him. "Here you go," she said softly. He looked up, meeting her eyes. His gaze wasn't just thankful. It was deep searching, like he was seeing more than just a waitress in front of him. After a moment, he spoke quietly, almost like he was talking to a memory. "You remind me of someone I lost a long time ago." Emma froze. The sound of rain, the smell of coffee, everything faded for a moment. She didn't know who he meant, or why those words made her heart ache a little. But something in his voice told her. This wasn't the last time she'd see him. The next morning, the cafe felt colder than usual. Emma walked in quietly, tied her apron, and started wiping tables. But she could feel it. The stares, the whispers. Everyone had something to say about yesterday. Before she could even start her shift, Her manager, Brian, called out from behind the counter. "Emma, office, now!" She followed him into the small room that smelled like burnt coffee and cleaning bleach. Brian crossed his arms and glared at her. "Do you have any idea what you did yesterday?" Emma stayed quiet. "You embarrassed this cafe," he snapped. "This is a business, not a charity. If you want to give out free coffee, do it somewhere else." Her voice was calm, but her eyes didn't drop. "I paid for it myself." "That's not the point," he said sharply. "You made a scene. Customers were uncomfortable. You made your coworker look like an idiot." Emma took a slow breath. He did that to himself. Brian slammed a hand on the desk. "Don't test me, Emma. You're here to serve, not to lecture people on kindness. Got it?" She nodded. "Can I go now?" "Get out," he muttered. "And next time, remember your place." When she stepped out, her co-workers, Marcy and Josh, stood near the sink, pretending to clean. The moment she passed by, Marcy whispered just loud enough, "Must be nice, acting like Mother Teresa when you still share rent with your kid sister." Josh chuckled. "Yeah, maybe she thought that old guy was a secret millionaire or something." Emma didn't react. She'd learned long ago that answering people like them wasn't worth it. She just hung up her apron, grabbed her bag, and walked out into the drizzle. By the time she reached her apartment, the sky was dark, and the city lights flickered through the rain. Inside, the tiny one-bedroom felt even smaller. Her little sister, Lily, lay curled up on the couch under a thin blanket. "Hey," Emma whispered softly, brushing her damp hair back. Lily blinked sleepily. "You're late." Emma smiled. "Got caught in the rain." She reheated some leftover porridge, added a pinch of salt, and handed it to her sister. Then she sat by the window, watching the rain slide down the glass, the same way it had in the cafe. When Lily finally fell asleep, Emma pulled out her wallet. 3 crumpled dollars, 1 bus token, and an old photo of their mom. That was it. She looked at the money for a long moment, then folded it back carefully. She could still hear her boss's voice in her head, the laughter of her co-workers, the whispers in the cafe. But none of it mattered. Looking out at the rain, she whispered to herself, "I'd still do it again." And somewhere in the city that same night, someone else was remembering her face. Someone far more powerful than she could ever imagine. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She kept staring at the ceiling, listening to the rain outside fade into silence. Her sister was asleep beside her, breathing softly, but Emma's mind wouldn't stop replaying what happened. The whispers, the laughter, the look on that old man's face. She turned toward the little photo frame on the table, her mother's picture. It was old, edges torn, colors fading, but the smile still looked warm. That smile always made Emma's heart ache. She remembered the day her mother died. She was just 15. They were in the middle of a busy market when her mom suddenly collapsed. Emma screamed for help, but no one stopped. People walked around them like they didn't even exist. She kept begging, crying, holding her mom's hand, but everyone looked away. And then, out of nowhere, a poor old woman came forward. Her clothes were patched, her hands rough, but her eyes kind. She gave Emma some water from a cracked bottle and covered her mother with a thin shawl. She didn't ask for anything. She didn't even say much. She just stayed until the ambulance came. That moment never left Emma. She didn't even know the woman's name. But that single act of kindness shaped her whole life. She promised herself that day, "If I ever see someone in pain, I won't walk away." Years passed. Life got harder. 2 jobs, unpaid bills, long nights. Sometimes she'd skip meals so her sister could eat. Sometimes she'd walk to work just to save bus money. But no matter how much life tested her, one thing never changed: her heart. Kindness was all she had left, but somehow, it was enough to keep her going. 4 days went by after the cafe incident. The gossip had slowed down. People had found new things to talk about. Emma worked quietly, not wanting any more attention. She thought she'd moved on from that day, from that man. Then one afternoon, the cafe doorbell rang. She looked up, and her breath caught. A man walked in, not the drenched, broken figure she'd seen before. This one wore a charcoal gray suit, a silk scarf, and polished shoes that clicked against the floor. His hair was neat, his presence calm and confident. But when he lifted his eyes, she froze. Those eyes, they were the same. The same man everyone had mocked days ago was now standing there, looking straight at her. And this time, he didn't look like a poor stranger. He looked like someone powerful, someone who had come back for a reason. The cafe was busy like always, the noise of cups, laughter, and coffee machines filling the air. Nothing felt different, until that sound. The doorbell chimed. Emma looked up, and her heart skipped a beat. A man walked in, tall and confident. His suit was charcoal gray, sharp and clean. His shoes were polished, his hair perfectly combed back. He looked like someone important, someone powerful. But then Emma saw his eyes, and her stomach dropped. Those were the same eyes. The same man she had bought coffee for a few days ago. The same man everyone had laughed at. For a moment, she just stood there frozen. Around her, whispers began to spread like fire. "Wait, is that him?" someone muttered. "No way, that can't be the same guy," another voice said. "He looks rich now," someone else whispered in disbelief. But it was him, the same man who had once stood there, shivering in the rain. Now he looked like he owned the place. Without saying a word, he walked straight to the same table by the window, the exact spot where he had sat that rainy day. Only this time, his back was straight, his presence calm but commanding. Emma's heart was beating fast. She didn't know what to do. Should she go talk to him? Pretend she didn't know him? She took a deep breath and forced herself to walk over, a menu in her hand. "Good afternoon, sir," she said quietly. "Would you like to see the menu?" He looked up slowly, a small smile playing on his lips. His voice was calm, steady. "No, thank you. Just coffee. Black, like last time." Emma froze. The way he said those last two words, "like last time," sent chills down her spine. He remembered. She nodded quickly and went back to the counter. Her hands were shaking a little as she poured the coffee, trying to ignore the curious eyes of her co-workers. The same people who had mocked him now couldn't stop staring. No one dared to speak this time. Emma carried the cup carefully to his table. She placed it down, whispering, "Here you go." He looked at her for a moment, not like a stranger, but like someone who already knew her heart. Then, without saying a word, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out an envelope. He slid it across the table toward her. Emma blinked, confused. "What's this?" she asked softly. His eyes softened, and a faint smile appeared again. "You changed my life that day," he said. For a second, Emma forgot to breathe. Her hand hovered over the envelope, unsure if she should take it. The room felt silent again, like time itself had paused. Something deep inside her told her. Whatever was in that envelope was going to change her life too. Emma couldn't focus for the rest of her shift. Every time she passed by his table, her eyes flicked toward the envelope lying there, untouched. She wanted to ask what it meant, but she didn't dare. And then, just as quietly as he came, the man finished his coffee, left a small nod in her direction, and walked out into the evening crowd. When her shift finally ended, the cafe was empty and quiet. The lights were dim. The air smelled faintly of espresso and rain. Emma slipped into a corner booth, pulled the envelope from her apron pocket, and stared at it for a moment. Her heart was pounding. She tore it open carefully. Inside was a folded note and a small business card. The handwriting on the note was neat and firm. I wasn't poor. I was searching for something money can't buy. Her eyes widened. She unfolded the second paper. It was a business card. Thick, expensive paper, printed in gold letters. Alexander Hayes, CEO, Hayes Global Industries. Emma's breath caught in her throat. The name looked familiar, but it took her a second to realize why. She'd seen it on news headlines, magazine covers, even billboards. Alexander Hayes was one of the most powerful businessmen in the country. A billionaire known for his companies, his charities, and his mysterious private life. She dropped the card onto the table, staring at it like it might disappear. The old man she'd bought coffee for him? It didn't make sense. The ragged coat, the soaked shoes. None of it matched the man in those glossy magazine photos. Her mind spun. The words from the note echoed again. I was searching for something money can't buy. Was it some kind of test? A joke? Or had he been watching her all along? Emma pressed a hand against her chest, trying to steady her heartbeat. The cafe felt colder now, emptier. She could still see his calm face in her mind. The way he looked at her before sliding that envelope across the table. It wasn't random. None of it was. Her hands trembled as she picked up the card again. The gold letters shimmered under the dim light. Alexander Hayes, the billionaire everyone admired, the man no one really knew, had walked into her cafe pretending to be poor. And for some reason she couldn't understand, he'd chosen her. Emma sat there in silence, staring at the card, until the truth finally sank in. The man she helped wasn't just a customer. He was watching her. The next morning, Emma came into the cafe still thinking about that note. She had barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that name, Alexander Hayes. It sounded unreal. How could the man she helped be someone like him? She told herself to forget it, to just do her job. But deep down, she knew that wasn't possible. Not anymore. Around noon, the cafe doorbell rang again. Emma didn't even look up this time. She didn't want to imagine things. But then a voice spoke, calm and familiar. "Good afternoon, Emma." Her heart stopped. She turned. And there he was, Alexander Hayes, the billionaire, the stranger, the man she had once seen soaking wet and ashamed. He wasn't wearing his suit today, but even in a simple shirt, he still carried that quiet confidence. Everyone in the cafe went silent, eyes following him as he walked straight toward her. "Can we talk?" he asked softly. Emma hesitated. Part of her wanted to run. Part of her wanted answers. Finally, she nodded. "I have a break in 10 minutes. He smiled faintly. "I'll wait." When her break came, they stepped outside, where the street was bright and cool after the morning rain. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Alexander said, "I owe you the truth." Emma folded her arms, her voice steady but guarded. "That would be nice." He took a slow breath. "I wasn't looking for sympathy, Emma. I was looking for something real. For years, I've met people who only see me for my name, my money, my power. I stopped trusting kindness because it always came with a price." Emma stayed quiet, her heart thudding. "So," he continued, "every few months, I leave everything behind, the suits, the cars, the comfort. I walk into random places like this cafe, and I see how people treat someone who has nothing. You'd be surprised how cruel the world becomes when it thinks you have nothing to offer." His words hung heavy between them. Emma finally asked, "So what was I then? A test?" He met her eyes. "Yes," he said softly. "A test I didn't expect anyone to pass." Her chest tightened. "You lied to everyone. To me. You wanted to prove a point. But people aren't experiments, Mr. Hayes." "I know," he said quietly. "And that's what makes you different. You didn't help me because you wanted something. You helped me because you couldn't watch someone be humiliated." Emma looked away, her throat tight. I didn't do it for attention. I did it because it was right. I know, he said again, his voice gentler now. For a moment, the noise of the street faded, replaced by a stillness that felt too heavy to break. Alexander took a step closer, his expression softer than before. You passed the test, he said. The one no one else ever did. Emma didn't move. She just stared at him, caught between disbelief and something she couldn't yet name. She didn't know it yet, but that was the moment everything in her life quietly began to change. The next day, the whole café buzzed with a strange kind of energy. Word had spread fast. The man who had once walked in looking poor was actually Alexander Hayes, one of the richest men in the country. Everyone suddenly acted different. The same people who mocked him days ago were now smiling too much, speaking too sweetly, pretending to care. When Alexander walked in again, the barista straightened his tie. The manager rushed to greet him, and even the customers whispered excitedly. But Alexander ignored them all. His eyes were searching for one person, her. Emma was behind the counter, trying to stay invisible, pretending to focus on cleaning cups. But when he said her name softly, Emma, she froze. Everyone turned to look. He walked up to her, calm and composed, and said, Can we talk? The manager practically jumped in, grinning. Mr. Hayes, please use my office. Anything you need. Alexander just nodded politely, and a few minutes later, he and Emma were sitting across from each other in that small office. The same one where her boss had yelled at her days ago. Alexander spoke first. I wanted to thank you again. What you did that day. It reminded me there's still goodness left in people. And I want to repay that kindness. Emma frowned slightly. You don't owe me anything, Mr. Hayes. He smiled. Maybe not. But I want to offer you something. A job at my company. Stable pay, better hours. A fresh start. You'll be able to take care of your sister comfortably. Emma blinked, shocked. You're serious? Completely, he said. You'd have your own place, medical care for your sister, and enough savings to build the life you deserve. Before Emma could answer, her manager knocked and peeked in, grinning like never before. Emma, isn't that wonderful? Such an honor. You should thank Mr. Hayes properly. She glanced at him, then at Alexander. Everyone outside the office window was staring. Her co-workers, the barista, even customers. The same people who once whispered about her now looked at her with envy. Suddenly, she wasn't invisible anymore. Emma took a slow breath, then spoke quietly. Mr. Hayes, I appreciate what you're offering, truly. But I didn't help you to get something in return. He looked surprised, but she continued. That day, I didn't see a billionaire in disguise. I saw a man being humiliated. I just did what anyone with a heart should do. I don't need a reward for that. For a few seconds, the room stayed silent. Then Alexander smiled, a real, soft smile this time. You really are different, he said quietly. Emma stood up. Thank you, Mr. Hayes, but I think I should get back to work. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. I wasn't testing your kindness, Emma, he said, his tone gentle yet certain. She turned back slowly, meeting his eyes. I was searching for my heart, he said, pausing for a moment, his voice dropping almost to a whisper. And I think I found it. Emma froze. Her breath caught in her throat as their eyes locked for a brief, fragile moment. One that said more than words ever could. And for the first time since she'd met him, she couldn't tell whether she was afraid or falling. Alexander Hayes. His voice sometimes echoed in her mind. I was searching for my heart, and I think I found it. One evening, after closing the cafe, she returned home to find a letter slipped under her door. The paper was thick, the handwriting elegant. Her name, Emma Clark, written in smooth black ink. She hesitated for a second, then opened it. Inside was a gold-edged invitation and a handwritten note that read, For the woman who taught me what wealth really means. Alexander Hayes. Emma stared at the letter, her hands trembling. It was an invitation to a charity gala. One of those events you only saw on TV, filled with rich, polished people who lived in another world. She wasn't sure why he wanted her there, but something inside told her she had to go. The night of the event, she wore her simple blue dress, the nicest thing she owned. Her sister helped pin her hair back, smiling softly. "You look beautiful," Lily whispered. When Emma arrived, the grand hall shimmered with lights. Music played softly as people in elegant gowns and suits mingled, glasses in hand. She stood near the entrance, feeling small, unsure, until she heard that familiar voice behind her. "I was hoping you'd come." She turned, and there he was, Alexander Hayes, in a black tuxedo, smiling just the way he had that first day she offered him coffee. Emma couldn't help but smile back. "You didn't think I would, did you?" He shook his head lightly. "Honestly, I wasn't sure." He paused, eyes warm. "But I hoped." They walked together through the hall, passing portraits, laughter, and shining chandeliers. Everyone greeted Alexander respectfully, but his attention stayed only on her. He introduced her to people, proudly calling her the woman who reminded me what kindness looks like. For the first time, Emma didn't feel out of place. She stood there, not as the poor waitress who paid for someone's coffee, but as a woman whose small act of compassion had changed something far bigger than she ever imagined. As the night drew to a close, Alexander led her to a quiet corner of the terrace. The city lights flickered below them, and the air carried the faint scent of rain again, just like the day they met. He turned to her and said softly, "You gave me a reason to believe again. Will you let me return the favor?" Emma froze, her breath catching. The words hung in the night air, warm and gentle. She looked at him, the man who had once been a stranger in rags, and her eyes shimmered with something she couldn't hide. She didn't answer right away. She just smiled, a soft, trembling smile that said more than words ever could. And as the camera fades, the rain begins to fall once more, leaving the world to wonder what she said next.